I got a call in March of 2023. Woman on the other end. She's shaking. She'd closed on her home 8 months earlier, $387,000, and she did everything right. I want to be clear about that. Got pre-approved, used a licensed agent. The home passed inspection. She felt good about it. Then her neighbor put up a for sale sign. Same street, same floor plan, same square footage. Listed at $369, sold in 11 days. She called her agent. You know what he told her? He said, the market was different then. That's the last honest thing that man said to her. She overpaid by $18,000. And nobody, not her agent, not her lender, not the appraiser, nobody said a word because none of them had any reason to. I'm Frank Mitchell, by the way, retired broker, 32 years in this industry. I closed over 2,100 transactions before I was done, and I've seen this buried inside deals more times than I can count. Here's what gets me. Most people who overpaid in 2022 and 2023, they have no idea it happened. The deal closed, everyone got paid, and the buyer went home thinking they got a fair price. That's not a mistake. That's a system working exactly the way it was designed to work, just not for you. So let me ask you this. Do you actually know what your home appraised for versus what comparable homes sold for in that same 90-day window? If you don't know that number, you need to stick around. And listen, drop a comment if your agent ever hit you with, the market was different then, when you questioned your price. I've been in this business long enough to know that line didn't start with her agent. I want to know how many of you heard that exact same thing. There's one belief that almost every first-time buyer carries into closing day. It feels logical, it feels safe, and it's almost certainly wrong. Here it is. If my home appraised for what I paid, then I paid a fair price. I get it. I really do. The appraisal feels like the adult in the room, the neutral voice, the independent check that's supposed to protect you from overpaying. It's not, and nobody inside an active real estate transaction will ever explain this to you the way I'm about to, because it's not in their interest to. So here's how an appraisal actually works. When an appraiser comes to value your home, they don't look at what homes are selling for today. They look at what homes sold for in the past 90 to 180 days. Those are called comparable sales, comps. Think about what that means in a market that's moving fast. If prices went up 8% in 6 months, and they did in a lot of markets between 2021 and 2023, the appraiser is using yesterday's numbers to validate today's price. They're always one step behind. That's not a bug. That's how the system was built. In a slow, stable market, that lag doesn't matter much. But in a heated market, that gap is exactly where your money disappears. Now here's the part nobody in this industry wants to say out loud. There's pressure on appraisers. Real pressure. Quiet pressure. The kind that never shows up in anything you sign. Think about everyone sitting at that table with you. Your agent gets paid when the deal closes. The seller's agent gets paid when the deal closes. Your lender, paid at closing. Title company, paid at closing. Actually, you know what? I want you to really sit with that list for a second. Every single person in that room has the same interest. The deal closes, they get paid, done. The only person who gets paid whether the deal closes or not is the appraiser. So what happens when an appraiser comes in low? Deal falls apart. And now that appraiser has a reputation for killing deals, agents stop recommending them. Lenders stop calling. I watched this happen over and over for 30 years, and I'm still not comfortable with how normal it became. Nobody says hit the number. It doesn't work like that. It's just understood. Appraisers who consistently support contract prices stay busy. The ones who don't, they just quietly disappear. Now look at this. Between 2021 and 2023, over 80% of purchase appraisals came in at or above contract price. Over 80%. In a market that everyone now agrees was being driven by bidding wars, panic buying, and pure emotion. In any other industry, an independent valuation that agrees with the asking price more than 80% of the time would set off alarm bells everywhere. In real estate, nobody blinked. I want to tell you about something I saw. This was back in 2003, Houston. And I know that sounds like a detour, but stay with me, because this is the clearest example I've ever seen of how this plays out. A buyer paid $242,000 for a house in a subdivision that had been moving fast. Appraisal came back at $243,500. Clean, easy. Everyone felt good. Closed in 3 weeks. 6 months later, that subdivision corrected. Hard. Identical homes. Same street, same builder, same everything. Started selling at $226,000. The appraisal wasn't technically wrong. The appraiser used the right comps from the right window. Everything done by the book. completely valid. But that buyer lost $16,000 in equity before their first anniversary in that house. They didn't make a bad decision. They trusted a system that was never designed to protect them. That's what I can't let go of even now. The system didn't fail by accident. It was built this way. So do something right now. Grab a piece of paper. Write down what you paid for your home. Then write down what the house 2 doors down, or around the corner, sold for in the 6 months after you closed. If you don't know that second number, that's exactly the problem I'm talking about. Because the gap between those two numbers, that's where the truth lives. And in the next section, I'm going to show you exactly why every person in that transaction had every reason, every financial reason, to make sure you never found out what that gap was. Let me tell you who's actually in the room when you buy a house. You've got your buyer's agent, seller's agent, your mortgage broker, and the appraiser we already talked about. Now here's something nobody sits you down to explain before you sign a single thing. 3 of those 4 people get paid only if your deal closes. Only if you buy that house, at that price, on that day. Your buyer's agent, paid at closing. Seller's agent, paid at closing. Your mortgage broker, paid at closing. Every commission, every fee, every paycheck in that room depends on one thing: you signing those final papers. So ask yourself something honest. What happens to their income if they look at you across that table and say, "I think this price is too high. I think you should walk away." The deal dies. They go home with nothing, and you go home thinking you had an honest agent. Now, I want to be fair here. I'm not saying every agent is corrupt. I spent 30 years in this industry alongside genuinely good people. I worked with brokers I'd trust with my own family. But the system is not built to protect you. It's built to close. Those are 2 very different things. And in 2022 and 2023, that system was running at full speed. Here's what was happening across the country during those 2 years. Buyers were scared. Inventory was low. Rates were still manageable, and everyone knew that was about to change. So people were rushing, panicking, making offers on homes they'd walked through for 20 minutes. And agents, not all of them, but enough, used that fear as a tool. The line I kept hearing from buyers who called me during that period: "My agent said I had to waive the appraisal contingency or I'd lose the house." Okay, stop right there, because I need to make sure you actually understand what that sentence means, because most buyers don't, and that's not an accident. An appraisal contingency is a clause in your purchase contract. It says, if this home appraises for less than what you agreed to pay, you have the right to renegotiate or walk away without losing your deposit. It's one of the most important protections a buyer has. Full stop. Waiving it means you're signing a legal document that says, "I agree to pay this price no matter what any independent appraiser says this home is actually worth." In 30 years, over 2,100 transactions, I recommended waiving that contingency exactly twice, 2 times. Both were situations where I'd done my own deep analysis and I was confident in the value. And even then, it made me uncomfortable. Buyers in 2022 and 2023 were waiving it on houses they'd toured for 20 minutes because their agent told them they had no choice. So let me ask you directly, did your agent ever say the words appraisal contingency out loud before you signed? Not pointed at a line on a page? Not slid a paper across the table? Actually sat down and explained what you were giving up? Or did they just hand you the stack and show you where to initial? Sit with that for a second, and it gets worse. There was another tool being used on buyers during this period, called the escalation clause. Here's how it worked. Your agent helps you write an offer that says, "I'll pay X dollars. But if another buyer offers more, my offer automatically goes up by a set increment, all the way up to a ceiling I set in advance." Agents sold this as smart strategy, a way to win without overpaying. What it actually did was remove the ceiling from your own thinking. You might have walked in comfortable at $310,000, but your escalation clause had a ceiling of $334 because your agent said, "just in case." And suddenly, you're the winning bid at $331,500 against a competing offer you never actually verified existed. I'm not saying every competing offer in 2022 was fabricated. I'm saying the escalation clause made it very easy for a price to get driven above what you would have rationally offered, and very hard for you to know exactly why. Now let me tell you about a young couple in Nashville, both teachers, first home. They'd saved for 4 years to get there. Their agent told them they needed to waive the appraisal contingency to compete. They trusted her. They waived it. They won the bid at $334,000. 3 weeks after closing, they tried to refinance to get a better rate. The home appraised at $312,000. They had paid $22,000 above what a licensed appraiser said that home was worth. And they had signed paperwork before closing legally agreeing to do exactly that. They called me after. I went through everything. I looked at every document. There was nothing to do. 2 teachers, 4 years of savings, and a contract that was perfectly legal and perfectly designed to protect everyone in that room except them. That's not a rare case. That's not an edge case. I want you to really hear that. And in the next section, I'm going to show you exactly what that decision actually costs. Not just on closing day. Every single month. For the next 30 years. I need you to stay with me for this section, because this is where most people turn the video off. Not because they're bored, because what I'm about to say is too uncomfortable to sit with. Don't turn it off. This is the part you actually need to hear. Most buyers think overpaying by $15,000 means they lost $15,000. That's not how this works. When you overpay by $15,000 on a mortgage, you don't just pay that $15,000, you finance it, which means you pay interest on it every single month for 30 years at 7%, which is right where rates were sitting when most of these deals closed. That extra $15,000 in your loan generates $35,800 in additional interest over the life of the mortgage. The $15,000 mistake doesn't cost you $15,000. It costs you $50,800. And look, I want to let that number land for a second, because I've said it to people sitting across from me and watched them go completely quiet. $50,800 on a $15,000 overpayment. That's the math. That's not my opinion. And that number assumes everything else stays stable, assumes you can refinance when you want to, assumes your equity grows the way your lender's chart showed you at closing. For a lot of buyers right now, none of those assumptions are holding. Here's what's happening with refinancing. Buyers who overpaid in 2022 and 2023 and now want to refinance to a lower rate are hitting a wall, a hard wall, because in markets like Phoenix, Austin, Boise, parts of Florida, values dropped 7 to 12% from their peak by late 2023 into 2024. If you bought at the peak and you overpaid on top of that, you may owe more on your mortgage than your home is currently worth. That's called negative equity. And when you're in negative equity, no lender will touch you. You're stuck at whatever rate you closed at, for however long it takes the market to recover enough to dig you out. Now, actually, before I move on, I want to make sure I cover something that gets buried in almost every conversation about this. PMI, private mortgage insurance. If you put less than 20% down, and most first-time buyers don't, scratch that. Most first-time buyers do put down less than 20%. And if that's you, you're paying PMI every single month. Typically somewhere between $100 and $300 a month depending on your loan size. You were told you'd pay it until you reached 20% equity. Your lender showed you a timeline. Probably looked reasonable. But that timeline was built on the purchase price you paid. If the market has corrected and your home is now worth less than what you paid, your equity isn't growing the way that chart promised. You're paying PMI longer than you planned, possibly years longer, and nobody's going to call you to tell you that. And there's one more thing, the one nobody talks about at all. In most counties in this country, your property tax assessment is based on your purchase price. The county sees what you paid, they lock that number in, and they send you a bill based on it every single year. If you overpaid, you are being taxed on your overpayment, permanently, until you appeal it. So open Zillow right now, not to feel good about your home, not to watch the estimated value tick up. Look at what homes on your street, similar size, similar age, have actually sold for in the last 6 months. Write those numbers down. Compare them to what you paid. The difference has a name. It's called your overpayment, and it's not sitting in the past. It's showing up in your mortgage payment right now, in your PMI bill right now, in your property tax bill right now, every single month. I had a family in Phoenix, bought at $410,000 in 2022, 5% down. By late 2023, their home was valued at $374,000. They'd put in $20,500 as a down payment, paid down roughly $8,000 in principal, and still owed $389,500 on a house worth $374,000. Negative equity, trapped, still paying PMI, still paying taxes on $410,000 every single month. I've been in this business long enough to know that when people hear numbers like this, they sometimes think, okay, but that's an extreme case. It's not. I watched it happen. That family is real. That math is real. And there are hundreds of thousands of buyers sitting in that exact same position right now who have no idea. And in the last section, I'm going to tell you exactly what you can do about it, starting this week. I'm not going to end this video with empty reassurance. I'm not going to tell you everything's going to be fine. I'm not going to tell you the market always comes back. You've heard enough of that from people who are trying to sell you something. What I'm going to tell you is what you can actually do, right now, this week. And look, I've thought about how to frame this, and honestly, the cleanest way is just to walk you through 3 things. Not theories, not consider speaking to a professional. 3 actual moves, specific, and almost nobody makes them. First one, your property tax appeal. Every county in this country has a formal appeals process. You can challenge your assessment using recent comparable sales from your own neighborhood. It's free to file, doesn't require a lawyer, and in my experience, it works more often than it fails. I've seen it knock $1,200 to $2,800 off annual tax bills every year, year after year. I knew a retired school teacher in Ohio, bought in 2021. Market landed about $14,000 below what she paid. She didn't hire anyone. She didn't call a lawyer. She pulled 3 comparable sales from her own street, filed a formal appeal with her county assessor, and waited. Her assessment was reduced. She saved $1,640 a year in property taxes. Over 10 years, that's $16,400, more than she overpaid in the first place. I still think about her when people tell me there's nothing they can do. The system has a door. Most people just never try it. Second thing, a retrospective appraisal. If you believe your original appraisal was inflated, and after everything I've shown you today, you may have real reason to believe that, you can hire a licensed appraiser to value the home as of your original closing date, using the data that existed then. It creates a documented record. If you ever need it for legal action, for negotiation, or just for your own peace of mind, it exists. It's yours. Third one, and this one makes me genuinely angry that lenders don't tell you, PMI removal. At 24 months, you can request a new appraisal from your lender and formally petition to have PMI removed. Your lender will not call you. They will not send you a reminder. That monthly charge will just keep coming, month after month, until you make them stop it. So make them stop it. Now, you can't get the $15,000 back. I wish I could tell you otherwise. I really do. But you can stop the bleeding. You can stop paying elevated taxes on an inflated price. You can stop paying PMI longer than you have to. You can create documentation that protects you going forward. The question isn't whether you can do something about this. The question is whether you do it this week or just let the clock keep running.